Safe sex. Gina lay her hand on the bar, exposing her freshly painted purple nails. She smiled at the grey-haired man talking to the barman, knowing full well that her voluptuous lips would at the very least capture his attention, and, if everything went to plan, would have him eating out of her hands within minutes. The grey-haired man was indeed captivated by the pretty mouth smiling at him. He gave the woman the once-over, checking her up and down, and decided she was worth spending a little bit of time to get to know. And a drink for the lady, he said to the barman, who smiled and took a glass and readied to pour whiskey. Gina nodded, and the barman poured. Gina swept a strand of hair from her face and mouthed thank you to the stranger so seductively that it was like a small kiss on his neck. He shivered and held out a hand. "I'm Ivan," he said. "Pleased to meet you." His accent was thick. Gina took his hand and gently shook it. "Charmed," she said. His smile told her he was there for the taking. Gina toyed with her drink, her fingers caressing the glass, the movement hypnotizing the Russian standing in front of her. The barman rolled his eyes. He'd seen this scene playing out in front of him 1,000 times before. He knew that before long they'd be sloping off to the man's room. Money would change hands and bodily fluids would be exchanged. Gina spoke quietly, luring Ivan ever closer and closer. She could feel his excited breath on her cheek. "Let's go to your room," she whispered. Ivan nodded and they stood up and slinked out of the bar. As soon as the door clicked shut, Ivan went to kiss Gina. But Gina pushed him away. "Money first," she said with a wink. Ivan dug in his wallet and drew out the bill they'd agreed on. Gina's eyes lit up and she tucked the note into her bag. "Now get undressed," she said, "and I'll give you a show you'll never forget." Ivan did as he was told, hurriedly getting out of his clothes and settling on the bed, already showing off his impressive manhood. Gina nodded her approval and smiled. She pulled up the skirt on her left leg, revealing her stocking tops. "Leave it alone," she whispered to stop Ivan from touching himself. She then pulled up her skirt over her right leg, but this time the view was not so good. Tucked into her stockings was a small handgun. Gina whipped it out and pointed it at Ivan. "Take my money," Ivan said, "but please don't kill me." "I don't want your money," Gina snapped. "Does the name Dmitry Yashin mean anything to you?" Ivan remained still. Names were names, faces were faces, bodies were bodies. In the dim and distant past he'd done his government's work, no questions asked. He'd always known that one day his past might catch up with him, no matter how respectable his business was these days. This woman was obviously a victim's daughter or granddaughter looking for revenge. "He was a good man," Ivan said, not knowing if Dmitry Yashin was a good man, a bad man, or even a man. "You kill..." But Gina couldn't finish her sentence before she was lying on the ground with 2 suited men standing over her, her own weapon pointing at her head. And naked Ivan stood up, taking the gun from his bodyguard. "I have no idea who Dmitry Yashin is," he said. Gina felt Ivan's spit land millimeters away from her face. "And you obviously have no idea who Ivan Gabrielov is. You think I'd be foolish enough to have sex without protection?"